Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates. Was started, they thought that was a sort of 10-day wonder when rock and roll started. Everyone said it'd be over. And it was, performers in rock and roll were very fly. Picture this. It's the late 70s. Mick Jagger is wearing silk clothes, sitting in a fancy dressing room with velvet chairs drinking whiskey while a band plays loudly in the back. He makes an angry face. Not because of the drink, but because of the sound. It's not that they're too loud. It's that they're trying too hard. There were always bands that tried to be better than the Rolling Stones, and Mick hated them for it. Jagger wasn't always loud about being mad, but he stayed angry for a long time. His cool personality hid how he watched for other bands trying to copy him for fake people, for those who acted great without really being great. And when he didn't like a band, it was mean and it lasted forever. Here are the 6 bands Mick Jagger could never stand. And why first came the band he thought took themselves way too seriously. The Doors. Jagger didn't believe Jim Morrison's sad artist act. He thought it was just pretend fake and too much. While the Rolling Stones partied hard, they never pretended it made them smarter. The Doors, in Jagger's mind, tried to mix magic with rock music and ended up boring. The fight got worse in 1968 when both bands were touring. Morrison's crazy behavior made Jagger mad, who thought being professional was really important. At a show in Los Angeles, Morrison supposedly showed up hours late and stumbled on stage, making the whole night late. Something that made Mick really angry, who liked being in control, even when things were crazy. Backstage, everyone was tense. Workers whispered about a fight between Jagger and Morrison about who would play last at a shared concert. The Doors said they were better poets. The Rolling Stones said they had more history. Neither one gave up. Jagger said the Doors were a band too, in love with their own secrets to him. Morrison's stage act was fake, too focused on himself. He saw the Doors as a band trying too hard to be prophets, when all Mick wanted from rock was to make the ground shake. For Jagger, the fight with the Doors was a classic case of feelings versus movement, and he never forgave the fog that tried to cover up his fire. And then came a band Mick called a business plan wearing leather Kiss to Jagger. Kiss wasn't rock. It was a toy company with guitars, their face paint fireworks, and Big Show rubbed him the wrong way. He believed real stage presence didn't need props. It needed heart. In the late 70s, as Kiss got really popular, Jagger was annoyed by people always comparing them. Writers called them the next Rolling Stones, which made him furious. He didn't just disagree, he took it as a personal attack. And so when you're on the road, for instance, you become this like a bit. You have a lot more ego when you're on the road because you really need it to deal with the audience and deal with where the Rolling Stones had natural coolness and danger. He saw Kiss as hiding behind smoke machines and comic book style. The fight got worse when someone suggested the Rolling Stones should share the main spot with Kiss in America for a huge stadium tour. Jagger said no right away, reportedly saying he wouldn't share a stage with a circus act. From then on, the Cold War got worse at award shows and music business parties. Mick avoided the Kiss group like they were sick. Years later, Gene Simmons made jokes about the Rolling Stones being old and not cool anymore in a tabloid interview, which only made Jagger dislike them more behind closed doors. Mick would call Kiss clowns in boots, a band more interested in action figures than songs. They may have filled big venues, but to Jagger they filled them with show, not music. And in his eyes, that was the biggest lie rock could tell. Next came the band that felt like a copy without its own voice, Oasis. It wasn't just that Oasis loved the Rolling Stones. It was their attitude. The Gallagher brothers always talked about Jagger and Richards as heroes while also saying they were better than them. For Mick, it crossed a line during the Britpop boom of the 90s. Jagger stayed quiet in public, but privately he was really mad. He felt Oasis acted like they invented being rebellious while ignoring the path the Rolling Stones had made decades earlier. There were rumors that Jagger thought they were fakes in old clothes living off someone else's fame. Tensions got worse when Oasis began making fun of older bands during interviews with hidden insults that seemed aimed at the Rolling Stones at a music awards show in 1996. Mick reportedly left the room when Oasis took the stage. Backstage, security workers noticed the tension. No eye contact, no words, just cold air between the groups. What made the grudge permanent was Noel Gallagher's famous claim that Oasis were bigger than the Rolling Stones. That wasn't just bragging. It was like breaking a sacred rule. Mick reportedly threw a drink and stormed out of the room. From then on, Oasis wasn't just annoying. They were the perfect example of disrespect to Jagger. They were a cover band with a superiority complex, a shadow thinking. It was a storm. Then there was the band he believed mixed up noise with power. Nirvana. Jagger never warmed up to grunge music. He respected the movement's raw energy, but Nirvana's anti-glamour attitude clashed with everything the Rolling Stones had built: swagger, spectacle, and showmanship. Where the Rolling Stones turned chaos into dance moves, Nirvana dragged it across the floor like a bleeding wound. It wasn't just a style difference. It was a culture war when Nirvana became the new face of rebellion in the early 90s. Jagger felt the sting of being erased magazine covers. Kurt Cobain, the new voice of a generation, subtly suggesting that Jagger's time was over. That message didn't sit well backstage at the 1992 MTV Awards. Tensions were high when Jagger and members of Nirvana were placed in rooms next to each other. According to insiders, Jagger avoided talking to them, completely claiming he had no interest in being part of a funeral for fun. He didn't hate Kurt Cobain, felt sorry for him, but he hated how the media turned Nirvana into rock's new gold standard, as if the past had to be destroyed to make room. Nirvana fans made fun of older acts like the Rolling Stones for being flashy and self-centered, which only made Jagger's dislike stronger in his eyes. Nirvana took the fun out of rock, and that to him was unforgivable. They weren't just loud, they were depressing. And in Mick's world, rock was supposed to excite, not make people sad. Another target of Jagger's hate. The band he saw as too complicated and emotionally flat. Radiohead. Jagger liked change, but not if it meant giving up. Feeling Radiohead's brainy, experimental approach to rock annoyed him. He thought they made music to be studied, not felt. To him, it was emotion by math, not instinct. It was music written for critics, not crowds. In early 2000s award shows, Radiohead frequently won categories once dominated by the Rolling Stones. Jagger felt the shift and resented it. To him, it was as though raw coolness, emotional electricity were being replaced by codes, algorithms, and sound study. There was no direct fight, but moments of tension piled up at one major festival. Jagger was scheduled to attend a Radiohead set, but left suddenly when their sound check ran long and delayed his own rehearsal. Word spread fast in private. He made fun of their lyrics, as diary entries read. Under strobe lights, another spark came when a writer compared Kid A to Exile on Main Street, calling the former a masterpiece of modern loneliness, and suggesting the Rolling Stones' work now seemed old-fashioned. By comparison, Jagger was reportedly furious, seeing it as erasure by praise. He didn't hate them for existing. He hated that critics forgot how to feel when they listened, and in his eyes, no band should ever need a secret decoder to make people move. And finally, the band he thought represented everything fake about modern rock, Coldplay. Mick called them safe. That was the worst insult in his vocabulary. Coldplay, with their soft colors and crowd-friendly songs, struck him as music designed to offend no one, and therefore meant nothing. The hate started quietly, but it grew louder behind closed doors when Coldplay was invited to headline Glastonbury. In the same year the Rolling Stones had been ignored, Jagger reportedly got angry, calling it a watered-down age of rock. He saw their appeal not as success, but as giving up a band built to comfort, not challenge. Backstage at a charity gala, Jagger and Chris Martin were introduced. According to sources, the meeting was brief and icy. Jagger offered a fake smile, then turned away. Later that night, he was heard calling Coldplay the music version of airplane food served to everyone, remembered by no one. He got annoyed anytime critics called Coldplay this generation's stadium giants. To him, that comparison wasn't just wrong, it was insulting. The Rolling Stones had fought their way through scandal, sweat, and survival. Coldplay, in Jagger's view, had floated on marketing and melody. The Rolling Stones built empires on danger. Coldplay built theirs on comfort. And for Mick Jagger, there was no greater sin. Jagger doesn't fear, he attacks. Then smiles, but behind the charm was always a storm. These 6 bands weren't just his targets, they were threats, challenges to the throne. Or worse, reminders of what he feared: rock might become watered down, over-polished, or drained of danger. Because for Mick, rock wasn't just about sound. It was about sex, sweat, and spectacle. It was about commanding chaos and charisma. If a band couldn't bring that to the stage, he didn't want their name near his. He saw himself not just as a performer, but as a protector of what a legacy that couldn't be manufactured. And so he kept his spotlight, not by being the loudest, but by being the sharpest, the most unapologetic, the one still grinning while others cracked. He watched bands come and go, praised by critics, loved by young people, hyped as the next big thing. And still none could match his smooth moves, his burn, his bite. To him, they were gusts in a storm, and he was the thunder. They'd never walk like him. They'd never be him, because Jagger wasn't just rock's past. He was its heartbeat, daring anyone to outlast the beat.